Locked on Syracuse Ball has a new center. Peter Carey has committed. We'll talk all about him. Is he a project? Are we excited? How are we feeling about this 2022 class and all the iterations that we have exhausted and gone up and down and roller coastered our way to? But we'll also sneak in some Garrett Shrader, of course. I know a lot of Syracuse football fans are dying for our football takes as well. So we'll get to grading Garrett Shrader and his performance against Liberty. It's all in the Locked On Syracuse podcast, and it starts right now.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome on in, and thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your very first listen every single morning. We are here with you every single weekday. And reminder that you can find us. We are free and available on every single podcast platform as well as on YouTube now. And check us out on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. Twitter buzzing a little bit yesterday, Ty, because Syracuse got to commit Peter Carey. And I think we were sort of expecting it, right?
Has got to be saying, like, really, Jim? Really? Yeah. I have some momentum behind my program right now. People care about Syracuse football again. And really? And it seems like the Liberty game is something that kind of pushed him over the edge. It was like he was there with Chris Bunch for that game, and he felt like the energy inside the dome and all that stuff. He loved it. Yeah. And then he committed, and Dino's got to be like, really? Like, come on, man. But no, all around, like, hey, it's college athletics is all about synergy. Basketball helps out football. Football helps out basketball. All that stuff. It's all about synergy. Everyone wants to have a two-sport program.
Yeah, I think it's cool that he was at the Liberty game and they won. He probably would have committed if they lost too, but it certainly didn't hurt that Syracuse had a good game. And he had some funny quotes. I think he was talking to Mike McAllister saying that, that Liberty quarterback was no joke and the Syracuse running back looked pretty good. That's Sean Tucker, of course. But yeah, it's awesome that he committed. It works out well for us, I guess, because it's Wednesday and it's kind of in between the Florida State buildup. And we'll have tons of football talk the rest of the week. But this is a big commitment because we're always wondering, all right, can we get the center position back to what it used to be, maybe pre-ACC days? This is definitely a project-type player in Peter Carey. He's got a lot of growth. He's got a lot of development to do. He hasn't played at a high level of high school for very long. He's very skinny, but you can tell that there's a lot there, and there's going to be time for him to develop, which is the good thing because they already have Jesse Edwards and Frank Anselm.
And that's where I want to start this conversation because this staff must really love Peter Carey if they're bringing in another big man in this class that's not a transfer, because there's going to be a developmental stage when you look at the guys in front of him, and it seems like Frank Anselm's having a really good early portion to his camp. I think practice actually started yesterday for Syracuse basketball. So if they are bringing him in, there is a love factor there because you've got stability at the position, at least for what you're asking out of your center from an offensive and defensive standpoint for the next couple of years. So they must really like his upside, and I don't imagine he's going to play a whole heck of a lot those first couple of seasons, but maybe by his junior year, what would be his true junior year, he'll probably redshirt a season.
Right.
I'd imagine that's part of the plan, but you got to think that they must really see something in him if they're bringing him in to a crowded center room.
Well, they probably view him as a solution in 2023 and 2024, right? And they view him as like a 5-star commit that will be a freshman that year or something, because hopefully you can develop him in 2 years.
I mean, 5-star. Whoa, Tim, you're using the F word again. Like
I'm saying he's not a 5-star right now, but they're not concerned about the next couple of years of the center position. And obviously they would have loved Donovan Clingan or someone like that, but it didn't happen. So now he is a plan B, but he's a plan B that fits pretty well into their plan going forward because they don't really need a good center for the next couple of years if Frank Anselm and Jesse Edwards continue to progress. You've also got Barama Sidibe this year. So what they're really worried about is, all right, how does he fit into the long-term plans? And, okay, we need to get a center ready for 2023, 2024. So I don't think it really matters how well he does in the first couple years. They just want some guy that'll be ready for 2023, 2024. and he's probably going to be ready by that time.
And I think one thing that's worth noting here is that when you look in this class, and I think in a handful of the previous classes as well, Syracuse has done a good job at scouting bigs. They just haven't done a good job at securing the commitment from those guys. Like, let's just take this class as an example. Donovan Clingan, Kyle Filipowski. Syracuse was on those two guys really early. Flip's now a top 20 guy off to Duke. Klingan's looking like a really strong 4-star type of guy. He's going to UConn. And Syracuse was on both of those guys really early, if not first, in both of the processes. So the fact that they haven't been able to get those guys, maybe this is that guy that they view as not necessarily a consolation prize, but okay, we're out ahead of this. No one else is getting out ahead of this. Some of the center market has already dried up, so people feel good about their center situations in this 2022 class. And Peter Carey is going to be our guy.
Right. So his offer sheet, not great, obviously. It's Rutgers, St. Bonaventure, UMass, Albany, Bryant. I think Brown and Iona were involved as well. He doesn't
shout
really
out Rick Pitino.
Yeah, shout out Rick, I guess. That's true.
The old Boeheim Pitino recruiting battles are back.
Right. It's just like Boeheim Hopkins when you're fighting over Syracuse and Washington now. But no, I mean, that Rick Pitino liked him. That says something, I guess. So the offer sheet, it's not good. And I don't think anyone is expecting him to make an immediate impact in year one. But here's the good news. He fits our system in the 2-3 zone very well from what I've seen on tape. And just looking at his frame, how he catches lob passes, how athletic he is for being a 7-foot guy. He definitely has the 2-3 zone blueprint already. It's just how quickly can you get him up to speed offensively more than anything. I think he'll be solid defensively. I think he will play like a Marek type role or even Tyler Lydon type role because he is quick enough to maybe get out to that corner 3. He's long enough to disrupt down low. He's got to definitely put on some weight, but you just got to get him up to speed skill-wise offensively because he is so raw at this stage of his career.
I think one of the things when I see, and Adam Finkelstein put out a tweet, he's a recruiting guy for ESPN, and he said, explosive vertical athlete, fluid runner, mover for his size, upside as a lob guy and finisher, shot blocker, rim runner, and then just early development right now for where he is in playing basketball. And he's missed some time because of the pandemic and all that stuff. But that feels like a very similar scouting report that we got for Frank Anselem too. Just vertical guy, long, runs the floor well, can catch and finish at the rim too. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. If Syracuse finds success with Frank Anselem as this rim runner type of big, and then whenever he does end up leaving the program, you feel like you're going to have a seamless transition moving on to the next guy with Peter Carey. And I think that's something that if you've got an active big in this 2-3 zone, like some of these other guys that Syracuse has had, they've been effective in the 2-3. Like I think of Pascal and I think of Barama. They've been effective, but I wouldn't describe them as necessarily active. They've been good given the physical gifts that they've been given of size and length. But I want to see what it's like having an active guy at the bottom of that zone too. Someone who's going to be able to run, be mobile, all that stuff.
Yeah, the defense is the really important thing in that 2-3 zone. I think that's taken a step back. Everyone talks about the offensive production from the center. It's very true. We haven't gotten a whole lot of that recently, but defense is also very important. We'll continue talking about Peter Carey, of course, and sort of the long-term look of the center position and our thoughts on where it's heading. But I want to remind you guys that BetOnline.ag is the #1 spot for all your pro and college football action this season. Got a new updated site and interface. So they have even more odds, props, and contests. You can go right now. You can bet on that Syracuse, Florida State line we talked about a little bit on yesterday's show. As of me looking right now, over on BetOnline.ag, Florida State still 4.5-point favorite. So maybe it's time to pounce on the orange. If you think they're going to take the Seminoles to 0-5, head over to their website, sign up today for a free account. And when you do sign up for your free account, enter our promo code. That's Locked On. You'll get a 100% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, that promo code is Locked On. It's over at betonline.ag. It's super easy to use on your phone as well. They've got football, basketball, boxing, even your favorite Vegas casino games are all over there at BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. So the center position going forward, you've got Anselem, you've got Edwards, you've got Carey. The way I feel, and I don't mean this like as any disrespect to those guys, but they're three guys that we don't exactly know what we're going to get, but there's potential in all three of them. And it feels like they have to hit on at least one, maybe even two of those three. And maybe your definition of hit is different player to player. Maybe that's an all ACC player. Maybe it's just a Pascal Chukwu type that is really solid in the back half of the zone and becomes an established presence back there. I feel good, though, that they're going to hit on at least one of those guys, which is big because I don't know if I felt this good about other guys, and they've been in definitely worse positions center-wise in previous years.
Definitely, and I think it helps to have depth. I'm excited most for Frank Anselm based on things that we're hearing and also just the fact that he is a former four-star guy. Like, he is one of the highest rated Syracuse centers that they've gotten in quite a little bit now. When you factor in when he was supposed to actually come into college, which is supposed to be this year. He's essentially a freshman this year, both in true stature of the red shirt that everyone's getting and the fact that this was actually supposed to be the year he was supposed to go off to college. So I'm excited for his prospects. I think he could be a really valuable piece long-term. It's just the nature of, okay, yeah, you say you feel really good about the depth and the players, and you're hoping they hit on one, but this new wrinkle of the transfer portal always, I mean, you can see depth evaporate in a second, it feels like, if not everyone's happy. And sometimes having too many guys can be a problem in that regard as well. Yeah,
that's true. The way I view it is Syracuse is not in a position right now to reel in a Kyle Flip necessarily. They're probably pretty close on Kyle Flip. I'm not saying that they weren't, but if you're down to Duke or Syracuse and you play the big position, I think there are some pros to being a center at Syracuse, but in general, if you're an offensive-minded center, they're not really reeling in those 4 or 5 stars because of the way Jim Boeheim's system is. Yeah.
Peter Carey spoke with Tipton Edits, and also I believe it was Mike McAllister too. And he talked about the offense and how he'd fit in offensively. And I kind of chuckled when I heard some of this stuff because offensively, the amount of screens they set and dump offs they have to the bigs. Like, what? When have we seen the dump offs to the bigs in recent memory to a guy like Brahma or Jesse and all that stuff? Now, it almost reminds me, remember like the old NBA memes page where it was like the picture of Kobe was like, pass, just get the rebound. All right, if you're active enough, there will be a lot of rebounds to be had. It's just, can you be that guy? When you're 7 foot tall and springy like he is, you'd imagine that that's going to be something that he can take advantage of on getting some of those offensive rebounds, those tips. That is going to be where he's going to see the bulk of his offense. And that's not just a him thing. That is most Syracuse centers thing.
Sure. You're right, because when he mentioned that they reviewed film, I think he said he reviewed film with Boeheim, which I think is awesome. It seems like a lot of recent recruits have gotten that treatment and that walkthrough, and that's probably a good thing to keep doing. I don't know if they've upped that recently or whatnot, but it feels like they have, just reading through quotes a little bit more. But they must have showed him Barek or Tyler Lydon, would be my guess, right? Because I guess they're also pretty similar body types. Like, maybe there's that 8-game stretch of Sidibe towards the end of a couple seasons ago where he played well that you can show. But I feel like he was referencing sort of Dolezaj's type of game. And that's how I view him at his best. Like, if he develops into the player that we hope he develops into, he should gain some weight. He might even get taller. I mean, he's still
seems like he's already, I think one report had him at 6'11", 195, and then a couple others had him at 7 foot, 210.
Yeah.
So it shows that A, he can put on muscle, and B, you're right, he might still be growing. Maybe he ends up being 7'1", 7'2". I think once you're 7 foot or 6'11", really, you're splitting hairs at that point. But
yeah, exactly. I mean, he's, for all intents and purposes, a 7-footer that is athletic, which that's all we want, right? Like, that's what Boeheim is targeting in the 2-3 zone. And I would guess that Boeheim and the rest of the staff, when they watched his games, the part that really appealed to them is just how well he fits the 2-3 zone. And that might be part of the reason why other teams haven't gone after him as much. That, coupled with the fact that Syracuse does have some time here to work him up to speed. They're not overly concerned with the center position in the next couple years.
It's a patience project. And that's the interesting part, because we've talked about how in the past they've gotten these project centers. But maybe the thing that has almost disrupted and been unfair to this whole process of developing a center is the fact that injuries have happened, and your development plan for a lot of these guys, think of like Jesse, John Bull, even Barama to a degree, the development plan kind of had a wrench thrown into it because of injuries that had happened, whether it was with Pascal or with Barama. And some of these guys just kind of got thrown into the fire right away. I mean, you had Marek back there, but let's be honest, Marek got into a lot of foul trouble as well. So you were forced to throw some of these guys out there who probably weren't as ready. And now I think you've got two quality options with Frank and with Jesse. And if one of them gets into foul trouble, you'll still have the other one on that back line too, where I don't think you're going to have to rush the development of some of these other guys as much as you did with someone like Jesse or Barama.
Right. And when you look at the 2022 class as it stands right now, you've got two players that I think will contribute right away, in Copeland and Taylor. Copeland is sort of the X factor for me because you hear people that are really high on him. You hear people that question his defense and a little bit of other stuff and a little bit too much showmanship in his game. So I think he is sort of TBD on how much he's going to be a factor, but Justin Taylor definitely will play a factor right away. It's three guys. I'd like to see them add Chris Bunch. JJ Starling's still out there for the time being. Feels like Duke is coming hard and fast there, and I wouldn't be shocked if he commits to Duke. But Chris Bunch, he was at the game with Peter Carey. You'd think that he's gone on 2 visits to Syracuse now.
Yeah.
Feels like it's down to Hop or Boeheim for him in Syracuse or Washington. If they get Chris Bunch, that's a really solid class. I'm not saying it's maybe the best class ever, like we once talked about, but that's 4 good pieces.
Yeah, I think that the best course of action now for Syracuse is to dip into the transfer portal still. I'd rather find a guy who is ready to come in right away and play meaningful minutes. And listen, you can pick off all conference guys at this point with the transfer portal. I mean, we saw Syracuse be the victim of that when they lost their all-conference guy when Quincy Guerrier left to go to Oregon. So I would rather try to find some guy who has a high floor and can come in right away in that 2022-2023 season, because you're going to be looking at, okay, last season of Joe Girard, maybe you're getting another season of Buddy Boeheim, as Goody alluded to us a couple weeks ago on the show, saying with all this NIL stuff and from the surface level of what we're seeing, that kid, it looks like, is rolling in it with all the different deals that he's signed and the apple picking prospects that he's crafted up for himself. All of that stuff, I wouldn't rule it out that maybe he does come back for another season. I don't know. Maybe Goody was onto something there. But if he's coming back and then maybe you get another season of Benny Williams too, like that 2022 and 2023 team is not going to be, if some of these guys come back, is not going to be this 10, 11 bubble watching team. That's going to be a legitimate team that could make some noise in the tournament and maybe even get Elite 8 Final 4. So you'd want to look for some sort of transfer that can elevate you. I'd imagine probably at the 3 or the 4 spot, a transfer that can elevate you as opposed to a guy that you got to bring along. And maybe it'd be better to have a freshman watch as opposed to play meaningful minutes.
Right. And we've talked about this a lot, how I think we really kind of agree more than we disagree on the transfer portal versus how many in this class cycle. But I feel like my theory is still get Bunch, and then guys are going to leave, and then you'll add guys to the transfer portal too to make up your full roster.
And that's the tough spot, is that you don't know what your roster is going to look like come April. I mean, if everything goes swimmingly this year, maybe a bulk of the guys come back for another season, and the transfer exodus isn't like it has been in the past. Or maybe things go south and you lose 5 or 6 guys. You just don't know what it's going to be like when you get to April. And because of that, I feel like you're better served going for some of these transfers, because you know there's going to be transfers available in April. You don't know if there's going to be freshmen available in April.
Yeah, I think it'll be less guys leaving than last year, which is not saying a whole lot because there was a lot. But when you think about last year, the way we were talking about the team preseason is, all right, there's like 11 or 12 guys. How's Boeheim going to shake out the lineups? This year, it's pretty set in stone what the lineup and the rotation is. There's less guys. There's like 9 or 10 scholarship dudes. John Bolajak is probably not going to fit in there, but I don't even think that he's that much of a concern too much. And then, like the Cole Swiders, he knows what he's doing. He's playing, and then he's either leaving or coming back. So I think just because there's less bodies at the start of the season, we should not lose as many guys in the transfer portal. But we're still set to lose dudes just to graduation between
Right.
Sidibe.
I mean, you're going to
Buddy.
lose 2 for sure.
Yeah, right.
With Jimmy and Barama.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then it's the wild card of the rest, really.
Yeah, I think they'll probably lose Swider and Buddy as well, if I had to guess. But we'll see. Anyway, all right, let's take one last quick break on the show, and then of course, we will dive into Garrett Shrader. We will grade him in just a little bit. Want to remind you guys, though, about Built Bar, Ty and I's favorite protein bar out there. They have 9 delicious flavors, and this week only, limited time flavor, the cookie dough chunk. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. That is maybe the best flavor they have put together. I need to try it because we've tried the peanut butter brownie. That's our favorite right now. That is right up our alley, though, the cookie dough chunk. So maybe once we get our hands on that, we'll have to update you guys on what our true favorite flavor is. But most of these flavors that they have, I mean, they got coconut almond, salted caramel, mint brownie. They've got a lot of really good ones to choose from, and they're all healthy for you. 17 grams protein in most of them, only 130 calories, only 4 grams net carbs. A couple of the other ones have even better grams of protein. You can find some that are like 18 grams protein. They're 9 amazing flavors, all tasty, all healthy. And remember, this week only, that limited time flavor that you got to try out is that cookie dough chunk. Go to BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your first order. Again, the promo code is LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. So Garrett Shrader, tough grade for this game, I feel like, because I mean, the most important thing is Syracuse won the football game.
Right.
He's 1-0 as a starter. So, yes, his stats stink when you really dive into them. I mean, his rushing statistics are pretty good, but throwing the football, not great. You could say, all right, maybe that was the play calling a little bit in the second half. Wide receivers aren't great to begin with, but he missed some deep throws. Dino wasn't sugarcoating in the post-game presser and even the Monday presser.
On that first throw of the game, could have shut everyone up. Everyone up about his arm talent if he hits that first throw, but he didn't. And so that's why there's a lot of questions that persist. And let's say Liberty goes down and let's say Syracuse doesn't get that fumble, okay? And Liberty, with all this offensive momentum that they're rolling with, marches down the field and scores a touchdown. Or scores a touchdown on that play where they get stood up on 4th down.
Sure.
Do you trust Garrett Shrader to go out there and win that game for them?
Maybe not, but
it's hard to say yes because you would have to probably throw the ball at some point.
Right. So here's the good news. I thought Stephen Bailey asked a great question in the presser on Monday to Dino Babers. He was like, is that what you expect from Garrett passing the ball? Was that a good game? Was that a bad game? Because we just don't really know. We're not at practice. And he was like, no, that wasn't good. Like he's better than that. I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said, yes, like he's got to be better throwing the ball than that. And I think he can be better throwing the ball than that. And he said that as well after the game. He talked about how it's my first start in like 20 games. And maybe there was some nerves coming in that first start in the Dome. And Dino said that as well. The other thing is he handled the situation pretty well, I'd say, for finding out a couple hours before the game. He found out at 6 o'clock in the hotel.
That's a rough way to go. Yeah, that's a rough way to go about it. There, you'd like to have a little more heads up than that.
Yeah. So as for what grade I would give him, I'd give him a B-. I think. Could they have won the game with Tommy DeVito? Probably, maybe. I think the defense and the rushing attack was a big reason why they won that game. But also, I feel like they catered the offense to his style, and we moved the ball more than we really have against a legitimate team in a long time by doing that. And I got to give him a lot of credit for the way he ran the football, the way the offense executed in the red zone. That's the best the Syracuse red zone offense has looked in a long time. His passing was probably like a D, but I think he's going to get better as a passer. That's the encouraging thing.
I would probably give him a C for his overall performance. So I tweeted out the question, what grade would you give him? A, B, C, or F? I didn't include D in there because A, you can only put 4 options, and B, like, a D and an F feel like the same grade, right? Like, if you're getting straight D's, you are not eligible to play sports. So, like that to me, D and F is the same thing in my eyes. So, 4% gave him an A, 45% gave him a B, 47% gave him a C, and then 4% gave him an F. He obviously didn't earn an A. He obviously didn't earn an F. I think that a lot of people, and again, I didn't put the pluses or minus, but a lot of people sat in that B minus C plus range with it. I would have probably given him a firm C because there still is a lot that I need to see from him throwing the football. His rushing attack I thought was really good, and I thought Dino used him well in that regard as well, especially in the red area. But I do still need to see him throw the football because he completed one pass in the second half. One pass.
Yeah.
That
Right.
needs to be better. You're not going to win football games by completing one pass in the second half.
And the other thing is, so his completion percentage is right around 59% so far, and his stats throwing the ball don't look that bad because a lot of the Albany game was him dumping it off to Sean Tucker and then Tucker running for like 60 yards. Basically, when he's not throwing a screen pass this year, he is 12 for 28, 149 yards and an interception, no touchdown. So the non-screen game, which for all, I mean, we can basically chalk that out because if you're a quarterback at this level, you should be able to find Sean Tucker on a little screen pass on a design play like that. And even that's probably including some passes to the outside, quick passes to the wide receivers. So I think he can pass better than that. Hopefully they just find a way to keep the offense humming a little bit where he's throwing a lot of over the middle 10, 15-yard passes. The receivers get a little bit more separation for him. The other thing that is concerning when you look at his statistics, he's definitely dropping off a lot in terms of his Pro Football Focus grade when he's getting blitzed. So when he's blitzed in Pro Football Focus right now, 28.7 grade, which is really not good. I mean, this is graded on a 1 to 100 scale. When he's not blitzed, he's like a 58.9. When he's under pressure, he's a 44.7 on PFF. When he's not under pressure, he's a 59.7. So that shows you that he's got to get better at sort of processing things quicker when he is getting blitzed. And teams are probably going to look at those stats and continue to blitz him.
Well, here's the thing is I think you're going to get to a certain point where this offensive line, people are going to see the warts on it and realize and this is what Rutgers did against Syracuse. They brought 4 and got pressure. So when you can bring 4, drop one guy maybe as a spy, as a linebacker, to watch Garrett in the running game, and then drop the rest of your guys back in coverage, if you can get to the quarterback with 4 against Syracuse, the Orange are not going to win those games, right? Like we saw it against Rutgers. You're not going to win when you're consistently getting pressure with just a 4-man rush. And that's something that I think as we move closer and closer and further along into ACC play, you're going to see that happen a lot more frequently. And Garrett is not very good as a pocket passer. I think we've seen that. He just doesn't look comfortable. The feet are loud. They're moving all over the place. There's a lot that's left to be desired. And that's why Dino has to get him rolled out, cut the field in half with him, and let him make some of those throws rolling out to his right side, because that is when he can be effective. And that is what is going to help him and alleviate some of that pressure as well.
Right. And the other thing is, he doesn't have to make a lot of throws. We got Sean Tucker. This zone running system is working great. The offensive line, I'm not ready to call them good, but run blocking wise, they've been pretty solid. Matthew Bergeron's been terrific. I looked it up. He's allowed just 3 pressures over 103 pass blocking snaps this year. He's legitimately one of the best grades PFF wise at the tackle spot, basically in the country, but also in the ACC if you want to look at it that way as well.
Yeah.
So the offensive line has taken a step up this year. They needed to take about 5 steps up to be good this year, but they're good enough to just lean in on what we have and what is working, which is running the football with Sean Tucker.
Well, I want to hit on Matthew Bergeron and what you said there too real quick, because what did we say at the beginning of the year? This offensive line has to get better. And who did we have as the most important player on the offensive line and thus the most important player on the roster this year? It was Matthew Bergeron. Why is this team 3-1 right now? Why have they already hit their Vegas win total? It's because of a guy like Matthew Bergeron playing really strong football here to open up the season.
Yeah, and Dakota Davis graded really well too when he came back, and he played basically every single snap. It seems like Tisdale and Vettorello are still working out who is the true right tackle there. The snaps have to get better. Hopefully Aaron Service got that out of his system because that was a lot and definitely has to improve going forward. But that'll wrap up the Wednesday podcast. We'll be back on the show tomorrow. We thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every single weekday. We're going to start previewing Florida State a little bit tomorrow, I think, and any other news that comes up. We'll be here to break it all down, keep you guys updated on all things Syracuse. For your second listen today, don't forget you can check out your local NFL team. Just put in Locked On Bills, Locked On Giants, whatever it is, look it up wherever you get your podcast. The Locked On Podcast Network has you covered every single week.
If you want to hear angry people, Locked On Jets.
Locked On Giants, too, I'm sure is pretty angry as well right
too,
now. Yeah. But yes, Locked On Jets, probably not having the best of time. But still, sometimes it's fun to hear angry talk radio every once in a while. And you get some good insight on your team when they're really down in the dumps. It doesn't mean that you can't listen, even if they're not doing great. And hopefully Syracuse keeps it up for us and you guys stay listening here as we progress through Florida State. But we'll have some Florida State preview content for you the rest of the week. We thank you for listening. As